presentation, Sanjeev will be talking about 10 steps for project success. The earned value management is the tool. Questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. Please be a part of the polls when they are launched, and also you can download the handouts for future reference from the Handout tab. Sanjeev, over to you.
Thanks, Tushar. So, hi everyone. Welcome to this session of the 10 steps for the project success. So, we are going to talk about the earn value management as a tool today. So, let me launch my slide pack so at least we can walk through a few of those slides. So, before we start and deep dive into the subject line, I just want to introduce myself. Who is Sanjeev Parekh? So I'm mechanical engineer turned into the project controller a long time back. Worked for the various industries like the LNG, mining and metal, oil and gas, chemical, petrochem, refinery, and the defense. Project control is very close to my heart. That's the bread and butter. That's what I do. And it's very important to understand that how we can make the project successful. So today we are going to talk about the earned value management and how we can deliver the project on time, on budget. So when we are talking about the success of the project, we are talking about on time and on budget delivery today. So let's look at a few things here. How many projects have you delivered on time, on budget? So you can put in the chat or somewhere in there how many projects you have worked on and how many projects you have delivered on time, on budget. Feel free to put in the chat box. And look, without going further in the detail, what the PMI state says. The PMI states is telling 70% of the projects fail due to the lack of proper people, processes, and the tool. So the key for success is understanding what we do about that, how we prevent the failure, and how we make projects successful. So when you look at the earned value management, so earned value management is the combination of the processes, systems, and the software which will enable continuous assessment of the project performance, which will help project manager effectively measure how the project is aligned with the resource and the goal. It helps project manager to measure the project performance. It's a systematic approach. It's mainly used to find the variance in the project based on the comparison what work is performed against what's planned. So how we are comparing our current performance of the project against plan. And earned value management is used for the cost and the schedule mainly, and understanding the actual performance, use that for forecasting the project future performance. So it's mainly relying on the focus on the cost and the schedule efficiencies. So earned value management is a great tool. Yeah, it's a very great tool. But if it's not utilized properly, then may not work for your project. What happens is sometimes with the insufficient detail, insufficient expertise, if the project and the project team implement the earned value management, it will do even more harm than doing any benefit to your project. So what we're going to do today is just implementing the earned value management is not going to automatically guarantee the success for the project. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So we are going to look at the 10 simple steps to ensure the project delivery on time, on budget. And I'll show how. Let's look at the step number 1. First, and perhaps the most important things on the project, which call the inputs, the definitions and the detail. EVM is always successful when we have got the clearly defined project scope, including the objectives and the project deliverable. If the manager do not clearly understand and define what constitute the 100% of the project, how can they accurately represent the status down the road? You need to know the scope, need to know the objective of the project, you need to know the deliverable, and you need to know what makes 100%. Step number one. Step number two, resources. Who is doing what next? The EVM policy and the team should define in the EVM plan that who will be performing the work, identify any required resources from the internal as well as the external team member, understanding carefully, selecting the internal and external resources, the right mix is the essential element for the project planning. Remember, it's not the number of people, but the right people at the right time will make a difference. Step number three, plan and the schedule. These are the key to the execution. The project plan is about what and how, to be backed up by the good schedule, which is who and when. If the system integrates both budgets and the resources, earned value management will give the clear project schedule, which has got the sequence of the activity, identifying the significant task and the interdependency, and the detailed project plan will accurately describe the project scope as a plan value, which we will measure the earned value against. So plan value is very important, what we are measuring against, which will allow project manager to quickly identify any project variances and take the corrective actions early on. Early warning. It's all about the early warning. There is a little poll there. I will just activate that poll. And if you can respond to that poll, I'll just show on the screen as well. So you will see the responses from the team member here. Okay, sorry about that. I think this is not the one I wanted. Let me go back to polls. Yeah. Yeah. Wanted to have that schedule performance index. Sorry about that. I think I opened the wrong poll there. But that's SPI, and which one is true? Yeah, so you can see the results on the screen. 67% say SPI is earned value divided by plan value. And yes, 33% say plan value divided by actual cost. So yeah, the first one, the blue one is correct. The SPI is earned value divided by plan value. How much you have earned against your plan. So let's look at step number 4, what you can do with that. So step number 4 is budgeting. Use the rate you know. After clearly defining your project scope and schedule, project team need to make sure that their control budget is as per the estimate provided and it's loaded for all the tasks and the resources. So project manager need to keep the track of the various resources, their respective rates, their structure, and their definition in the cost accounting process. We should apply the rate discretely and especially over the longer program because they might have a different rate, different escalation, different currencies, And we need to know both project current rate and the future rate. That means the rate for the budget, rate for the actual, and rate for the forecast. So you need to know all the three rates. Step number 5, the starting gate. So everything rely on the baselining of the project. So when the project manager and the project team when define the time phase budget baseline for the total scope against which they will be measured the progress against, include both direct and the indirect cost for the each sub project. Stakeholder must agree on the starting point and the midstream metrics and ensure that the relevant milestone and the outcomes are agreed and documented and communicated. Everyone need to know what's the baseline, because that's the baseline we are measuring the progress and the performance of the project. Number 6, evaluation. So once we set up the baseline, this is the next step. You need to define the progress. Typically, the organization specify what physical product, output, metrics, or milestone, or the technical performance indicator they will be using to measure the actual work accomplished. We find the things in the like a deliverable, engineering deliverable, construction deliverable, quantities, whatever we're going to measure, that's what we need to put in the place in the evaluation plan. Whatever the metrics is, the key for the project success is communication of that metrics and agreement on that. The objective across the project team should be a single common objective and agree and communicate the rule of credit. So it doesn't matter what we agree on, as long as we agree as a project team, it's a part of the baseline. We measure against the baseline and our guidance about the rules of credit. So we measure the progress based on the scientific way, based on the quantity, based on the output, based on the metrics, based on the milestone, based on the performance metrics. Number 7, cost control. Need to align the actual cost to the project budget. So it should be match. We should exactly understand the estimate. We need to exactly understand the cost breakdown and need to understand the actual cost. If we don't understand the actual cost, actual money spent on the project to date, how can we define and forecast our future remaining resources, future remaining costs? We should have a true understanding about the actual cost. The best way to keep the actual cost tracking is to use the formal system for the cost control, use the resources like the cost controller, use the resources like the project accountant, making sure that all the direct and indirect costs specified in the project budget and require the resources are costed properly and captured properly. And all the indirect costs are also captured accurately for getting the full picture of the project, including the direct and the indirect costs. So that's a poll number 2. Let me see if I can find that. I can start that poll. The cost performance index, and I'll put the results on the screen. So what's the cost performance index and which one is true? CPI, earned value divided by actual cost, or CPI is earned value divided by planned value. So again, you will see the response from the various team member here, where 67% says the blue, which is the earned value divided by actual cost, 70%, and then 29% are telling that EV divided by PV. So the first one is correct. in the blue. So CPI is earned value divided by actual cost. Let's look at step number 9, monitor. So once we have got the schedule, we have got the cost, we have got the time phasing, we have got the baseline, we have got the progress measurement and the rule of credit. Now what we need to do, we need to keep measuring the progress and the performance. So it's a monitor, monitor, monitor. Once the program is underway, baseline is established, it's imperative that we monitor the performance every single day, every single week, every single month, quarter, and year. Determine any cost and schedule departure from the baseline. So if we find any variance against the baseline, why the variances are there, and how we can mitigate those variants, put the plan back on track. So that's the key for monitoring the project performance, progress, and the productivity. Excuse me. Step number 9, forecast. So when people talk about the project controller, so the key role for the project controller is more about giving the early warning if we are not going as per the plan, and do the accurate forecasting. So that's the key part of the project controller's life and what a value we add in the project team. So no one likes surprises, so avoid surprises. Earn value management will provide the quickly and independently the forecast of the total fund required, total resource required, and total time required to complete the project. So at the several point along the project timeline, project managers should be using the earned value data to forecast the final required cost, time, and the resource outcome, and appraise the status accordingly. Validate that forecast time to time, rely on the number, rely on the data-centric decision making, and making sure that forecast is robust and achievable and reliable. So that was the poll, which was, let me see, estimate to complete. So yeah, I'll put that back on the screen. Estimate to complete equal to estimate at completion minus actual cost. Estimate to complete equal to budget minus actual cost. Which one is true? Any further votes? You can add that in. It's still open. So 60% of the people in this presentation, they are telling that ETC is estimated completion minus actual cost, which is true. The 40% of the people who are telling budget minus actual cost equal to estimate to complete, this is more sort of like a trick question. Yeah, this if we ask in the interview for any planning and the cost engineer and project controller and say what's the ETC? ETC is budget minus actual. It's not budget minus actual. If we are doing budget minus actual equal to ETC, then probably we may not be relying on the real data of the earned value. We may not be forecasting properly, and we are keeping the budget equal to forecast. So which is not right. And in most of the project, there is no such thing that budget equal to forecast. So make sure that our forecasting mechanism, whatever we decide, whichever way we derive at the ETC, whether it's you come from the first principle, you derive the estimate to complete based on the remaining duration and the remaining resources. You may derive the ETC based on the calculated formula and the productivity and the performance and extrapolate into the future forecast, or you just go with the first principle and then do the re-estimate again for the remaining effort, which can be your ETC. So ETC should be always based on the correct methodology of the forecast what you select. So that's why the step 9 is very important to get the accurate forecast for the project. Let's look at step number 10, change. Change is the only constant in the life, as we know, and you can count on it. Whether it's a government project, whether it's a public or private sector project, whether it's any smaller project or bigger project, you will find the change. Then change will happen from the day one, from the first hour, from the first minute when we start the project. By defining the change management process upfront in the EVM policies and practices, management and the project team member will be better prepared to deal with this inevitable. Additionally, it's imperative to adjust the project baseline when the change occurs. If the change is so massive that we can't even execute our plan, we can't even execute our schedule, and we can't execute our budget and the forecast, then we need to re-baseline the project. So there's no point working on something where it's not reliable, it's not relevant, and it's not realistic. So if major change happen, look back to the change, find out the impact on the cost and the schedule and the quality and the risk and project risk profile or project even execution logic. Anything change, it will have an impact. Need to do the impact assessment, need to do the clear implementation of the change management processes, get the approval, put back into the baseline, replan, which will give you the revised plan value, and then measure against those plan value. So you are not measuring against which is totally irrelevant. So that's step number 10. So let's recap step 1 to 10. So first one was the input, definition and detail. That's what we talked about. Second one was resource, who is doing what next. Plan and schedule, which is key for the execution. Budgeting, use the rate you know. Starting gate, rely on the baseline. Evaluation, your definition of the progress. Cost control, align cost to the project budget. Monitor, monitor, monitor. Focus, avoid surprises. And change, you can count on it. So that's about it. That's just a little 10 step. We need to be mindful when we are setting up the project, our earned value management systems, and measuring the progress against the baseline, which will definitely help for project to deliver on time, on budget, will give you the early warning, will give you the accurate forecast, will help you to manage with the effective change and the risk on the project. So now we are open for any Q&A and any questions you might have, and I will try my best to answer that. Thank you. You can put the Q&A in the Q&A box there, or even in the chat, whichever way you prefer. But I prefer if you put text in your Q&A box. Any questions? Any query? Yeah. Look, if you don't have any question and query right now, that's fine. Feel free to reach out to me. You can follow me on my LinkedIn. You can follow my company Zero Float. You can find me anywhere on the social media as well, or scan the QR code and it will take you to the LinkedIn page as well. So feel free to contact me. If you have any questions, any query, drop me a line, drop me the email, and then we can discuss further. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Hello, Sanjeev. I'm audible?
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sanjeev, for
Thank
this
you.
session. And to the audience, the recordings and the presentations will be available on our website in a few weeks. And we would like to invite you to continue the conversations at the Networking Cafe. And also, you may visit the partners at a partner showcase area. So, thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.